Chapter 870. About twice the power. Marquis Sword Snow spat out a shocking sentence. In this life and death secret realm ranking battle, a lot of trump cards had been revealed. If Su Jing's Sacred Dragon Fist was the first, then Marquis Sword Star's Fifth Strike, Star Meteor, would be the second, and the third would be Marquis Sword Snow's Freezing Sword Point. In terms of might, Freezing Sword Point was indeed a lot weaker than Star Meteor, but it was not to the extent of being 2 times weaker. Now, Freezing Sword Point's might had already surpassed Marquis Sword Star's Star Meteor. Most importantly, Freezing Sword Point contained a compressed power. Once it pierced into the opponent's body, it would produce an incomparable frost chi and sword chi storm. At this moment, Marquis Sword Snow had the strength to kill a peak-level evil spirit. There's still time. Let's strive for the next step. Marquis Sword Snow did not plan to comprehend profounds in the garden. He had only mastered 2 profounds, Water Profound and Ice Profound, both of which had reached 80% completion. Raising them to 90% would be extremely difficult. Rather than wasting time, he might as well spend it on fused profounds. On the third last day, under the waterfall, a long sword suffused with a faint golden radiance suddenly slashed out. The sword light was incomparably sharp, yet incomparably supple. The 2 completely different auras fused together, causing the sword to cut through the waterfall and space. Not a single trace of power leaked out, all of it contained within the sword. This sword was extremely hard and powerful, extremely supple and supple. Metal gave birth to water, and water contained metal. Water Profound has also reached 80% completion. Yichen walked out of the waterfall and circulated his Jin Yuan, immediately evaporating the water on his body. In the first 7 days, Yichen had raised his Water Profound to 70% completion, and in the next 10 days, it had reached 80% completion. In the remaining 2 days, it would be impossible for his Water Profound to make any progress, it was simply too unrealistic. Standing beside the waterfall, Yichen recalled the charm of that sword strike. That sword attack just now wasn't the waning moon. The waning moon was still a bit rough. No matter how much the Metal Profound and Water Profound improved, their power was still limited. It was just like a normal low-grade profound martial skill, which could only contain a limited number of profounds. When one's profound realm was very high, one should create a middle-grade profound martial skill, and then a high-grade profound martial skill. Therefore, the higher the realm of the profound, the more powerful moves were needed to contain it. The might of high-grade profound martial arts varied. A high-grade profound martial art might have a killing power that was 10 or 20 times greater than a low-grade profound martial art. Therefore, high-level profound martial arts were also divided into many levels. The lowest grade profound sense martial arts were ordinary profound sense martial arts, followed by low-grade profound sense martial arts, middle-grade profound sense martial arts, upper-grade profound sense martial arts, and perfect-grade profound sense martial arts. In terms of rank, Waning Moon was only a low-rank profound sense martial art, but that sword just now was almost a mid-rank profound sense martial art. The difference between the 2 was 1 small level. Although it was only 1 small level, the difference in power was at least several times. In the past, Yichen thought that Waning Moon had the potential to become a top profound sense martial art as long as his Metal Profound and Water Profound reached great completion. But now, it seemed impossible. The higher one's realm was, the more different one's perspective would be. Back then, he thought it was possible, but it was only at that time, and Waning Moon was created by him at that time. How could the sword move created at that time compare to the current one? Metal Ultimacy 90% completion and Water Ultimacy 80% completion. I'm still far from completion, not to mention completion. This sword might still be outdated when the time comes. Therefore, I should be able to create more powerful sword moves based on the improvement of Metal and Water Ultimacy. Why don't I think of a general name for this sword art first? The same series of sword moves could be summarized into a set of sword arts. Let's call it Autumn Water Sword Spell. Waning Moon is the first movement of the Autumn Water Sword spell, and this sword is the second movement. Then, there will be the third, fourth, and fifth movement, all the way until the Metal Profound and Water Profound reach perfection. Autumn Water was the godly jade bone, which was quite poetic. Now that he had thought of the name of the sword art, it was time to name it. Thinking of the extremely condensed sword power when performing this sword attack, the sword light was extremely hard, extremely soft, and extremely tenacious. A phrase appeared in Yi Chen's mind: congealing water. Water, extremely soft. Congealing water meant that water was extremely condensed and could cut through iron and steel. Congealing water. The second movement of the Autumn Water Sword spell. Congealing water has been completed, but the Metal Profound and Water Profound still need to be further integrated. The higher the integration, the more condensed the sword power will be, and it will be able to easily cut through even more powerful objects. Getting rid of the distracting thoughts, Yi Chen continued to train the congealing water sword attack. Unknowingly, it was already the last day before the life and death secret realm closed. Right then, a lot of people had already stopped their training and started to spar with each other. At the center of the garden was a huge open space, where everyone had gathered. Duguju is here. Not far away, a white-haired youngster walked over. It was indeed Duguju. Do you dare to fight with me? Duguju said to young Undying Demon Lord. Courting death. Young Undying Demon Lord sneered and walked out from the crowd. After 20 days of training, young Undying Demon Lord had also made some gains. His Water Profound had improved from 60% completion to 70%. Although his Dark Profound didn't improve, it had already increased his strength by a lot. Young Undying Demon Lord is ranked 8th, while Duguju is ranked 12th. Although Duguju has improved a lot, young Undying Demon Lord has also improved a bit. This battle is going to be difficult. The spectators discussed in a low voice. Take the blade. Duguju took out his blade, using his most powerful attack right from the get-go. The deathly white blade light contained the Tao of Death. This blade attack seemed to be able to destroy all living beings. Moreover, compared to before, this blade attack was even faster and fiercer. All of Duguju's negative emotions seemed to have been infused into it. Impossible. So powerful. Young Undying Demon Lord's scalp went numb, and his pupils shrank to the size of a needle. With a roar, he suddenly punched out. It was precisely his famous chaotic demon fist. Whoosh! The blade light brushed past the fist energy, which immediately dispersed. Like a hot knife through butter, Duguju's blade fiercely slashed down on young Undying Demon Lord's shoulder. Poochie! A huge amount of blood spurted out from young Undying Demon Lord's shoulder like a fountain. His whole body swayed and staggered. Die! Duguju's body turned and his long blade slashed across young Undying Demon Lord's neck. Poochie! A head flew up, its eyes wide open. In the next moment, young Undying Demon Lord's body was teleported out of the secret realm and revived outside. Gasp! The sound of people sucking in cold breaths resounded as everyone looked at Duguju with dumbfounded expressions. In 20 days, Duguju's improvement was so huge. The first blade strike had rendered young Undying Demon Lord powerless, and the second blade had sent his head flying. Frightening. Not only are there many geniuses in True Spirit Continent, each and every one of them is also frightening. What a good killing blade strike. On the small bridge, Lan Sanmei clapped her hands. Let's fight. Duguju's battle intent boiled. Lan Sanmei shook her head. You're still not my opponent, even if you've comprehended Death Tao. It's not up to you. Duguju pounced over, and the deathly blade light appeared once again. I said, you're still not my opponent. As a demonic cultivator, how could Lan Sanmei be afraid? Since Duguju wanted to fight her, she didn't mind sending him on his way out of the secret realm. Demon Chop. The black blade light turned indistinct, containing a vibration power that far surpassed the past. Clang! Duguju's body was blasted away. Lan Sanmei chased after him, brushing past his opponent. Puff! A large amount of blood spurted out, and a blade scar appeared on Duguju's forehead, extending all the way to his throat. Duguju lost. Sheathing his blade, Lan Sanmei's face was calm. Hehe, the peerless geniuses of my blood sky continent are not inferior to those of true spirit continent. Duguju is so powerful, killing young undying demon lord with 2 blade strikes, but still lost to Lan Sanmei. The young experts of blood sky continent felt a sense of pride. Look, Marquis Sword Star and Marquis Sword Snow have arrived. At this time, it was Sky Sword Continent's turn to speak. Marquis Sword Star came from the east, while Marquis Sword Snow came from the west. What astonished the crowd was that the two's gazes passed through the crowd and landed on each other, brimming with battle intent. What's going on? Marquis Sword Star and Marquis Sword Snow want to fight? Sky Sword Continent's people creased their brows. Marquis Sword Star, I'll fight you without sword domain. Marquis Sword Snow's voice was indifferent, but his battle intent was even more intense. Then you'll die for sure. Marquis Sword Star sneered. Take out your sword. Your 7-star point kills Sword Art's 5th strike, Starfall. Among sword artists, Marquis Sword Star's Starfall was the strongest. Therefore, Marquis Sword Snow wanted to use his freezing sword to kill his opponent. Alright, I'll fulfill your wish. Marquis Sword Star didn't waste any words. Pulling out Greedy Wolf, he pierced through the air. This sword strike was just as frightening as before, containing the death radiance of exploding stars. Some observant people discovered that Marquis Sword Star's understanding of Death Dao had deepened, because this sword strike was even more refined than before. Marquis Sword Snow's complexion didn't change. He instantly pulled out his snow-white longsword and welcomed the incoming strike. The sword chi didn't disperse in the slightest, but instead condensed at the tip of the sword, forming a glass-like white energy sphere. Rumble. A large amount of freezing chi spread out, freezing the ground and forcing everyone to retreat. Your freezing sword points might has doubled. Half of Marquis Sword Star's body was frozen, and cracks could be seen on its surface. Your Starfall isn't weak either. Marquis Sword Snow looked down at his abdomen, where a bloody hole had been pierced. The vitality within his body was directly extinguished. Gotcha. Half of Marquis Sword Star's body shattered, sending him out of the secret realm along with his armor and Greedy Wolf. Although Marquis Sword Snow's aura was much weaker, he wasn't dead yet. This battle was a bitter victory for Marquis Sword Snow. My Earth Profound has finally reached 70% completion. Who dares to fight me? Rumble. The earth trembled as a tall figure walked over. It was Young Elephant Lord. Young Master Xiang was in high spirits. His main path of development was to cultivate energy. Other than studying Power Profound, he had also comprehended the Earth Profound. The improvement of the Earth Profound made him very confident. One had to know that he was a demonic beast. His comprehension wasn't very high, but his body was very strong. Therefore, even if he made a small improvement in the Profound, his strength would increase explosively. From afar, Young Elephant Lord saw Yi Chen walking toward him. He pointed at him and said, Yi Chen, do you dare to fight? Sword domain had a huge influence on sword artists, but on other experts, it could only suppress them. As a body refining expert, he was the least affected by sword domain. Chapter 871. Why wouldn't a loser dare? 2 days had deepened Yi Chen's understanding of congealing water. The charm of metal giving birth to water had also been penetrated by him, harmonizing and fusing them together. Seeing that there wasn't much time left, Yi Chen left the waterfall and walked over. He didn't expect young Elephant Lord to use him to establish his might after making some progress. Naturally, he wouldn't give the other party too much face. Humph, that was then, and this is now. Release your sword domain. Young Elephant Lord was very unhappy that he was ranked 6th. What made him even more unhappy was that Yi Chen was ranked 1st. To him, it didn't matter if Yi Chen had a sword domain or not. He wasn't like the young undying demon lord, who could be suppressed by the sword domain. I don't need sword domain to deal with you. Yi Chen naturally knew that sword domain couldn't suppress body refinement experts like Su Jing and young Elephant Lord. Of course, it would make things easier for him. He's not using sword domain. Everyone was shocked. In the ranking battles, Yi Chen had relied on sword domain to defeat young Elephant Lord. He had used it to slightly suppress young Elephant Lord before piercing his eye. In their opinion, young Elephant Lord was more or less afraid of Yi Chen's sword domain even though he said he didn't care about it. But now that Yi Chen had said that he wouldn't use sword domain, he naturally couldn't go back on his words. In that case, what could he rely on to defeat young Elephant Lord? He had improved, and young Elephant Lord had also improved. Hearing that Yi Chen wouldn't use sword domain, young Elephant Lord was a little surprised, but then he was pleasantly surprised. Yi Chen had relied on sword domain to defeat him, so he thought that Yi Chen wouldn't give up on his advantage. Since that was the case, he might as well be magnanimous and take the initiative to let Yi Chen release his sword domain. But he didn't expect that Yi Chen would actually give up on his sword domain. Shameless boasting. Take my fist. His body expanding to 3 meters, young Elephant Lord strode toward Yi Chen like a shooting star. Midway, he raised his bull-sized fist and punched out fiercely. An extremely dense savage chi pervaded the air, and the image of 100 elephants trumpeting together could be faintly seen. 8 Wild Elephants' Fist. Clearly, young Mammoth Lord's earth profundity had improved, and the 8 Desolation Mammoth Fist's power had increased by quite a bit. Yi Chen, let me see your ace. Marquis Sword Snow, on the other hand, did not feel that Yi Chen was deliberately mystifying things. Being able to reach the first place, he was definitely not a fool. Roar! Facing the young Elephant Lord's fierce elephant fist, Yi Chen unsheathed his sword. Although it seemed slow, it was actually fast. The evil vanquishing sword was suffused with a faint golden radiance. So fast. This was everyone's first impression. His second impression was that it was so domineering and so flexible. Yi Chen's water condensation sword technique contained both the toughness of metal and the softness of water. Compared to Waning Moon, it was more than twice as exquisite. Chi! The sound of sparks burning through cotton rang out. The evil vanquishing sword directly pierced through young Elephant Lord's fist energy and landed a heavy blow on his fist. Crackle! The extremely condensed sword energy passed through young Elephant Lord's glove and reached his right arm. His right arm emitted popping sounds as it exploded into a bloody mist. Poochie! The second sword strike, Yi Chen pierced through young Elephant Lord's throat. Eyes wide open, young Elephant Lord was teleported out of the secret realm. This. It seems even more powerful than Marquis Sword Snow's freezing sword point. Could this be the result of his 20 days of hard work? If Duguju and Lan Sanmei's improvements were already astonishing, and Marquis Sword Snow's was frightening, then Yi Chen's improvement could only be described as terrifying. It should be known that Yi Chen's sword moves were far inferior to Marquis Sword Snow's freezing sword point during the ranking battles. But now, they were several times more powerful. What is this move called? Marquis Sword Snow solemnly asked. Water condensation. Yi Chen replied. Good move, water condensation. Marquis Sword Snow could see that Yi Chen's move also contained the power of compression. However, the difference was that Yi Chen's power was transmitted outwards, while his freezing sword point was an eruption. Using the same power but releasing it in different ways created 2 completely different moves. Apart from the few people who had just fought, the others had not made much progress. Therefore, they were only exchanging pointers, rarely spilling blood. In the last half a day, Su Jing also came out. Half a day was too short, and the two did not feel the passage of time. Finally, signs of the realm closing appeared, and everyone was teleported out. Come back soon. Su Jing's figure rapidly faded. I will. Yi Chen's figure also faded. Buzz. The space distorted, and everyone left the realm. Blood Sky Continent, in the sky above the desolate mountain range, the space constantly squirmed, and one figure after another appeared. Yi Chen. Lan Sanmei walked toward Yi Chen. What's the matter? Yi Chen asked. Lan Sanmei said, You're not from Blood Sky Continent. Now that you've killed young Tiger Lord, the Beast King of his sect will most likely not let this matter go. Therefore, you'd better leave Blood Sky Continent as soon as possible. The longer you stay, the more danger you'll face. Although life and death Beast Kings won't kill you openly, they'll still give you an unbearable punishment. The news of Yi Chen killing young Tiger Lord reached Lan Sanmei's ears through the mouths of others. Yi Chen shook his head. True Spirit Continent is millions of li away from Blood Sky Continent. It's too late to escape now, and I don't intend to escape anyway. Lan Sanmei turned silent, then said, How will I know if I don't try? Beast Kings can travel through the void, and can travel millions of li in an instant. If I escape, they'll most likely decide to deal with me. I might as well stay in Blood Sky Continent and watch. Apart from this reason, Yi Chen also wanted to protect Eternal Sky Sect. He couldn't just leave and let Eternal Sky Sect suffer the consequences. Who knew what kind of humiliation Eternal Sky Sect would suffer in the future? Seeing Yi Chen's resolute expression, Lan Sanmei knew that persuasion would be useless. In Yi Chen's eyes, she even saw an extremely vague battle intent. She didn't know if it was just her imagination. In that case, I'll tell you about the Beast Kings of Sky Tiger Sect. Sky Tiger Sect has two great Beast Kings. One is Sky Tiger King, the sect leader of Sky Tiger Sect, and the other is Blood Tiger King, the supreme elder of Sky Tiger Sect. Sky Tiger King became a Beast King 300 years ago. In the starry sky, he once killed 3 king-grade space beasts by himself, and even ripped off a corner of a small star. His battle strength is not something ordinary life and death kings can compare to. What Lan Sanmei said was told to her by her sect elders. Killed 3 king-grade space beasts. Yi Chen's eyes narrowed. On land, there were demonic beasts, and in the starry sky, there were space beasts. These space beasts couldn't pass through the 3 layers of restrictions and arrive at Elysium. However, their battle strength was frightening. One-on-one, ordinary life and death kings couldn't do anything to a king-grade space beast. Some powerful king-grade space beasts could even compare to titled monarchs. Sky Tiger King. I'm not his opponent. Don't tell me Yuan Emperor has to make a move. Hearing this news, Yi Chen's heart sank. The Battle King had died 500 years ago, and at that time, the Sky Tiger King had not become a Beast King yet. Therefore, he had not heard anything about the Sky Tiger King. Blood Tiger King was a Beast King 500 years ago. He's Sky Tiger King's master. Of course, his battle strength isn't as frightening as Sky Tiger King's, but it's still not a small matter. One-on-one, he can kill king-grade space beasts. Compared to Sky Tiger King, Blood Tiger King made Yi Chen heave a sigh of relief. Although he still didn't have the slightest assurance against such an existence, at least it wouldn't make him despair. I know your battle strength is extraordinary. Perhaps you have the strength to contend against some kings who have just entered life and death realm. However, Sky Tiger King and Blood Tiger King are not people you can contend against. Lan Sanmei's intuition was extremely sharp. From the beginning to the end of the ranking battles, she felt that Yi Chen was hiding some of his strength. Therefore, she said this. I wonder what Beast King's White Wolf sect has. Yi Chen asked. What? You offended White Wolf sect? Lan Sanmei opened her rosy lips, dumbfounded. Yi Chen rubbed his nose and smiled bitterly. I hope someone will come and save you. Lan Sanmei no longer had the strength to be astonished or worried. White Wolf sect also has two great beast kings. One is White Wolf King, and the other is Giant Wolf King. White Wolf King is the sect leader of White Wolf sect. His battle strength is a lot weaker than Sky Tiger King, but he's still a lot stronger than Blood Tiger King. Giant Wolf King became a Beast King 200 years ago. It's said that his ascension was rather strange. He didn't enter life and death realm through normal means. Therefore, his battle strength is only equivalent to an ordinary king. White Wolf King doesn't even allow him to enter the starry sky, fearing that he might fall. Neither Sky Tiger King nor White Wolf King are my opponents. Blood Tiger King is probably stronger than me. Only Giant Wolf King is a bit easier to deal with, but I'll have to go all out. Lan Sanmei's information was very useful to him. At the very least, it gave him an idea. If you can't do it, come to my demonic blade sect. Lan Sanmei couldn't bear to see Yi Chen fall. If Yi Chen didn't fall, it wouldn't be long before another stunning king appeared in this world. However, as soon as she said these words, Lan Sanmei regretted it. It wasn't that she didn't want to save Yi Chen, but Demonic Blade sect had its own rules. If Lan Sanmei acted like this, it would bring many enemies to Demonic Blade sect. Moreover, this was only her personal opinion. How could her master and supreme elder allow her to act recklessly? Forget it. I have a way to deal with it. Yi Chen wasn't an inflexible person. If he really couldn't win, he could take out the painting and ask Yuan Emperor to help him escape. With Yuan Emperor's strength, even titled monarchs would be apprehensive, not to mention Sky Tiger King and White Wolf King. Of course, it was best not to use the painting. After all, Yuan Emperor wasn't the Yuan Emperor of the past. He was merely an image sealed by a secret art. Every bit of power he used would diminish, and it couldn't be made up for. Before entering life and death realm, it was best to be cautious. Wait a moment. Lan Sanmei took out a jade talisman from her storage ring and operated her Jin Yuan. One character after another entered the jade talisman, and with a fling of her hand, the jade talisman disappeared into the void. Bang! Right at this moment, the sky not far away suddenly split open, and a white-haired old man walked out. His body was surging with demonic power like a tidal wave. Chapter 872. Not good. It's Giant Wolf King. Lan Sanmei exclaimed in a low voice. Giant Wolf King was the supreme elder of White Wolf sect. 200 years ago, he had become a beast king. Although there was something strange about him becoming a beast king, he wasn't someone who had just entered life and death realm could compare to. It's Giant Wolf King of White Wolf sect. What is he doing here? I'm afraid he's here for young Wolf Lord. Many young experts of Blood Sky Continent hadn't left yet. Some who were about to leave also stopped and watched from afar. The white-haired old man, Giant Wolf King, swept his gaze around before finally landing on Yi Chen. His eyes turned green and vertical. Did you kill Lang Er? According to young Wolf Lord's description, he recognized Yi Chen at a glance. If you're talking about young Wolf Lord, then I think so. At this point, denying was meaningless. Yi Chen nodded. Do you know your crime? Giant Wolf King roared. What crime? Kid, even now, you're still being stubborn. Life and Death Secret Realm is a place for everyone to improve together. You killed my White Wolf sect's disciple, causing him to lose the opportunity to compete for the Life and Death Stone. This is a crime. Do you know your crime? Giant Wolf King squinted his eyes, emitting an ominous aura. He wanted to kill me, but I killed him instead. If you want to talk about principles, I'll accompany you. Let's see if I'm guilty or not. If I say you're guilty, then you're guilty. Don't try to argue. Now, I'll give you a choice. Come back to White Wolf sect with me and suffer for 100 years. After 100 years, I'll set you free. Giant Wolf King didn't give Yi Chen a chance to argue and decided that he was guilty. 100 years. Lan Sanmei's expression changed. 100 years later, everything would have changed. This was equivalent to erasing a person's talent and potential. Sorry, not even a year. Yi Chen shook his head. It's not up to you. As a Yao King, the Giant Wolf King naturally could not brazenly kill Yi Chen. Capturing him was his goal this time. With a flash, the Giant Wolf King appeared in front of Yi Chen in the blink of an eye. He extended his right hand and a boundless binding force burst out, forming a sphere of Yao energy around Yi Chen. Grappling martial art, trapping palm. The sphere formed by demonic energy rapidly compressed. Yi Chen immediately felt a huge pressure coming from all directions. If he didn't react immediately, this sphere of demonic energy would compress him into a ball, making him unable to move. Naturally, he would lose his ability to fight. He would be at the mercy of the demonic energy, unable to do anything. Sword domain. Congealing water. At this critical moment, Yi Chen's battle strength erupted. He released his sword domain, slowing down the speed of the demon power sphere's compression and buying himself a chance. At the same time, he pulled out the evil vanquishing sword with his right hand and slashed out. The pale golden light was not dazzling, nor did it give people a breathtaking feeling. However, the demon power sphere was immediately pierced through by this slash. Pang! The Giant Wolf King's palm collided with the evil vanquishing sword, creating ripples and cracks in the space. What a strange sword energy! The Giant Wolf King retreated with his right hand behind his back. If one observed carefully, one would notice that his right hand was slightly trembling. The clothes on his right arm were also slightly damaged. A Yao King is indeed a Yao King. Blood leaked out from the corner of Yi Chen's mouth as his entire body was sent flying. As for that demon power sphere, it had long since crumbled. In the first exchange between the two, Yi Chen was only slightly inferior. What? Impossible? The young experts present wished that they could wipe their eyes to see if they were hallucinating. With the Giant Wolf King's strength, he was actually unable to suppress Yi Chen. After sending the latter flying, he was also sent flying. He has reached the third layer of life and death chamber. Tai Quangzuan's eyes shone. Although they all had life and death stones, the speed of improvement of each person's mental state was different. Some people could increase their realm very quickly, while others couldn't even increase their realm for several months. There were even some who couldn't increase their realm at all. After the ranking battle, 10 people had obtained life and death stones. However, within 20 days, no one could increase their realm because the time was too short. After all, one needed to refine 4 life and death stones to reach the third layer of life and death chamber. Obviously, Yi Chen didn't reveal his cultivation base when fighting young Elephant Lord. With his cultivation base at the second layer of life and death chamber, he finished off his opponent with 2 sword moves. Good kid. No wonder you're so arrogant. However, you found the wrong target. The Giant Wolf King's right arm returned to normal as his tone turned cold. Giant Wolf King, if you leave now, you can still save some face. After clashing head-on with the Giant Wolf King, Yi Chen clearly understood the latter's explosive demonic power. It was indeed powerful, but not undefeatable. You're courting death. I've decided. I'll bring you back to White Wolf sect and make you suffer the pain of having your tendons pulled out and your skin peeled off every day. The Giant Wolf King roared. His surging demonic power exploded, creating numerous cracks in the space. 100 Wolf Sky Trampling Palm. With a slap, hundreds of demonic power giant wolves flew out, rushing toward Yi Chen. Each of them contained an enormous amount of demonic power. Only demonic beasts could squander their energy like this. If it were a human life and death king, unless their cultivation base exceeded 500 years, each attack would consume several % of their energy. Facing the numerous demonic power giant wolves, Yi Chen pushed his sword domain to the limit. The sword pressure caused their speed to sharply decrease. Then, he waved his sword, causing the space to distort and condense into a mirror. Bewitching mirror shattering. Shatter. Ping. The mirror exploded, and all the demonic power giant wolves shattered. Swish. Using sword steps, Yi Chen's figure shuttled out like a sword light, arriving before the giant wolf king in a flash and thrusting his sword. Autumn water sword art second style, congealing water. Not good. The giant wolf king promptly shattered the space, wanting to enter the void. However, under the pressure of the sword domain, the space had solidified a lot, causing his speed to slow down a bit. Thus, Yi Chen's sword pierced through his protective demonic power. Immediately, an extremely condensed sword energy penetrated his protective demonic power and entered his body. Puff! Spurting out a mouthful of blood, the giant wolf king was once again jolted out. His figure tumbled out, smashing into a huge mountain in desolate mountain range. The Beast King's protective demonic power is truly powerful. Even congealing water's sword energy couldn't penetrate it. It could only injure him a bit, but he'll recover soon. Although the giant wolf king seemed to be in a miserable state, Yi Chen was extremely clear that this sword attack couldn't do much to the giant wolf king. Of course, this was only Yi Chen's opinion. Including Lan Sanmei, all the spectating young experts were dumbfounded. For a long time, they couldn't utter a single word. He has the strength of a life and death king. It was unknown who said this sentence. Damn it. He was actually hiding his strength all along. With his strength, he wouldn't need to exhaust himself in the ranking battle. He could easily defeat anyone. Yi Chen was able to injure the giant wolf king not by relying on the sword domain or congealing water, but rather bewitching mirror shattering. Bewitching mirror shattering destroyed the giant wolf king's ace move, giving Yi Chen the opportunity to strike. If Yi Chen used bewitching mirror shattering in the ranking battle, who could be his opponent? Even Yi Chen's girlfriend in their eyes would be in danger. Bang! A large amount of rubble flew in the air as the giant wolf king rushed out and hovered in the air. Kid, you're dead for sure today. The giant wolf king had never suffered such humiliation before. To think that he, a majestic beast king, was injured by a kid who wasn't even a life and death king. If this matter spread out, his reputation would be ruined. The immense humiliation ignited his killing intent. Regardless of the unwritten rules, he hardened his heart and decided to kill Yi Chen on the spot. Ayo! Facing the sky, the giant wolf king let out a howl. His body flipped in the air and turned into an 80-meter-long, 10-meter-tall giant wolf. The giant wolf's eyes were like two searchlights as they converged into a beam of light. That sturdy body, metal-like hair, and blade-like claws all displayed his formidable battle strength. Standing motionless, the giant wolf king clawed at the space with his claws. Swoosh! In the next moment, the giant wolf king dashed toward Yi Chen. His huge body allowed him to move faster than a human. His entire body faded away, leaving behind only a translucent gray shadow. How could Yi Chen let him get close? Holding the evil vanquishing sword with both hands, he slashed out. The space was distorted and compressed, turning into a mirror. The giant wolf king's body froze in the mirror. Ping! The mirror shattered, and the giant wolf king's body was covered in wounds. Blood flowed out like a stream. Recover. Activating the undying body, the blood immediately flowed back into the giant wolf king's body. The wounds on his body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his hair grew back. Blood-severing ghost finger. Seeing this, Yi Chen wasn't the least bit surprised. If Beast Kings were so easy to defeat, they wouldn't be called Beast Kings. Spreading his feet apart, Yi Chen's entire being turned cold and austere. His aura condensed, as if there was a huge black hole hidden within his body, restraining his aura and preventing it from leaking out. An astonishing scene occurred. Behind Yi Chen, a white-robed ghost figure appeared. The ghost figure's face was blurry, and it didn't have a face. It grinned, revealing a pitch-black mouth. The eerie ghost laugh seemed to exist between reality and illusion. His left index finger curved like a hook, and Yi Chen slashed out. Following this movement, the white-robed ghost figure's left hand stretched out, disappearing into the void. When it reappeared, it was already in front of the giant Wolf King, probing into his body. Then, it grabbed out a large amount of qi and blood. Whoa! The giant Wolf King was terrified. What kind of secret art was this? It could actually grab out his qi and blood through space. Others might not know, but he was the clearest. Although he was a Beast King, he didn't become one through normal means. The Beast King's qi in his body hadn't fused with his flesh and blood. There was still a small portion of ordinary flesh and blood, which was his weakness. However, this weakness was inside his body, so the giant Wolf King wasn't worried. However, Yi Chen's secret art exposed his weakness. If it weren't for this weakness, the ghost hand wouldn't have been able to grab out his qi and blood. It would have only been able to grab out some Beast King's qi and blood, because the Beast King's qi and Beast King's qi were indistinguishable. After a large amount of qi and blood was grabbed out, the giant Wolf King's vitality immediately declined, and exhaustion appeared on his face. Chapter 873. I'm a dignified Beast King. How can I be defeated by a human kid? The giant Wolf King's body trembled, and the gray hair on his body stood on end. His body seemed to have swelled several times, and the claws on his toes extended once more. The claws glowed with a dark blue light and were incomparably sharp. Enduring his exhaustion, giant Wolf King raised his right claw and slashed. Dark blue iron claw. Demonic beasts with high aptitude generally had innate abilities. Giant Wolf King's innate ability was dark blue iron claw, which could tear apart even more powerful objects. It's an innate ability. Yi Chen immediately dispersed the blood-severing ghost finger. The white-robed ghostly figure disappeared with an eerie smile. Raising the evil-shattering sword in his right hand, Yi Chen forcefully raised his Jin Yuan and attacked with the second style of autumn water sword arts, congealing water. Pang! Dark blue iron claw was, after all, a Beast King's innate ability. Upon contact, congealing water immediately dispersed. Although the remnant sword energy landed on giant Wolf King's body, it ultimately couldn't penetrate the latter's protective demonic energy. On the other hand, the dark blue claw ruthlessly tore at Yi Chen's protective Jin Yuan. Puff! Spurting out a mouthful of blood, Yi Chen was injured. Even his armor couldn't resist such a powerful claw energy. His body was blasted away, and Yi Chen ultimately landed on a towering mountain peak. Giant Wolf King's strength is not as good as a demonic human king's. He should be no different from an ordinary life and death king. Moreover, he has a weakness: his flesh and demonic energy can't be fused. Yi Chen used blood-severing ghost finger with the intention of consuming a portion of giant Wolf King's demonic power. After all, a Beast King's flesh and demonic power had fused together, so it could only consume demonic power. However, he didn't expect that this finger would consume a large amount of giant Wolf King's blood and qi, causing his condition to sharply decline. This was much better than consuming demonic power. However, a demonic king was a demonic king after all. Relying on these methods alone, Yi Chen would eventually lose. After all, he couldn't afford to waste time. The amount of demonic energy in giant Wolf King's body was simply too much, dozens of times more than his. Even ordinary life and death kings couldn't compare to him. As long as it wasn't a fatal injury, he could easily recover to his peak state. All he had to do was consume a bit of demonic energy. Die. The giant wolf king's claw swiped out again, this time using its innate ability, Blue Iron Claw. Break. Standing on the mountain peak, Yi Chen used bewitching mirror shattering and shattered the blue claw energy. The two fought speed against speed, using offense against offense. Giant Wolf King originally had the advantage of shuttling through space. However, Yi Chen's sword domain could reinforce the space, making it consume even more demonic energy to do so. His speed was also reduced by half. In the end, he simply gave up on shuttling through space and fought head-on with Yi Chen. As his true essence flowed out like water, Yi Chen's expression became dignified. Seems like I have to use the Sky Scorpio sword. If he didn't use the Sky Scorpio sword, Yi Chen wouldn't have much Jin Yuan left in his body. Ha! With a single slash, the giant Wolf King was forced back. Taking advantage of this gap, Yi Chen put away the evil vanquishing sword and took out a devilishly domineering purple-silver longsword. The hilt of the sword was black, with a scorpion in the shape of a supreme-grade sword, Sky Scorpio sword. Congealing water. With the Sky Scorpio sword in hand, Yi Chen instantly used the second style of the Autumn Water Sword arts. Buzz. The sword energy was incomparably condensed. As it pierced through space, the edges of the spatial cracks rapidly crystallized, filling the air with a purple color. Gotcha. Giant Wolf King's protective demonic energy could no longer endure the sword chi's impact, turning into purple crystals. The sword energy landed on his right shoulder, instantly penetrating it. In an instant, Giant Wolf King's entire right shoulder crystallized. The power of congealing water's explosion acted on the crystal, shattering it into a rain of light. Howl. Giant Wolf King howled miserably. It's a supreme-grade sword. Damn it, you actually have a supreme-grade sword. Giant Wolf King, who had lost a piece of his body, practically smashed through space and appeared 100 li away. Activating his undying body, the flesh on his missing piece wriggled and healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, at the same time, his aura was weakening. Yi Chen's sword had already injured his internal organs, and the crystallized energy had also been transmitted into them. Moreover, his undying body was only at the early limb regrowth realm, so how could it be easily repaired? At this moment, he was relying on his immense demonic energy to suppress the injury, preventing it from erupting. You have a supreme-grade sword? 100 li away, Giant Wolf King stared at Yi Chen. So what if I do? Pointing the Sky Scorpio sword at the ground, purple sword light fluctuating, Yi Chen said indifferently. Today's matter won't end like this. I, Giant Wolf King, swear that I will kill you. Giant Wolf King wished he could kill all the spectators. This way, no one would know that he had been beaten so miserably by Yi Chen. However, he didn't dare. All the young experts present had great backgrounds. Behind them were demonic kings and life and death kings. Therefore, only by killing Yi Chen in the future could he redeem himself. If you don't leave now, then don't even think about it. Yi Chen waved his sword again, and the sword chi chased after him like a meteor. Giant Wolf King's eyes widened as he fled into the space with his tail between his legs. Puff! The sword chi also tore open the space and disappeared. Faintly, the spectators seemed to hear Giant Wolf King's roar again, causing them to exchange glances. Huff! After losing 50% of his Jin Yuan, Yi Chen was extremely exhausted. At mid-half-step King Realm, he could use Evil Vanquishing Sword 5 times. At high-step Realm, he could use it 10 times. At the first layer, he could use it 20 times, the second layer 40 times, and the third layer 80 times. Previously, he had used Evil Vanquishing Sword at least 20 times, consuming a quarter of his Jin Yuan. Then, he used Sky Scorpio's sword at an even more frightening speed. Merely 2 strikes had consumed 50% of his Jinyuan. In other words, Yi Chen could only use Sky Scorpio's sword 5 or 6 times at his peak. Of course, Sky Scorpio sword's Jinyuan consumption was so frightening because it was a powerful supreme grade sword. On the other hand, the pseudo-supreme grade evil vanquishing sword's might was less than half of an ordinary supreme grade sword. The gap between the two was enormous. Relying on Sky Scorpio sword, Yi Chen could seriously injure Giant Wolf King and force him to flee. Taking out a large number of Jinyuan crystals, Yi Chen rapidly refined them to make up for his deficiency. Giant Wolf King was beaten away. Yi Chen defeated Giant Wolf King. Surpassing realms to defeat Giant Wolf King. How is this possible? Too frightening. Back then, even Xianhou could only contend against life and death kings at this realm. She couldn't defeat them, but Yi Chen actually did it. Contending against life and death kings with the status of strongest half-step king. Since ancient times, many people had accomplished this. However, defeating a life and death king was something that not a single person had accomplished in the last several tens of thousands of years. Of course, the spectating young experts were clear that Yi Chen had relied on Sky Scorpio's sword to achieve this step. Back then, Xianhou didn't have a supreme grade artifact, and had relied on her own strength. Even so, Yi Chen's strength wasn't any weaker than Xuanhou's. He was on the same level as Xianhou. If this news were to spread, the entire Elysium would be shaken. Someone said. Of course. Someone as talented as Xianhou has appeared. How could it not be shaken? Once he enters life and death realm, how frightening would he be? Ling Hui blankly looked at Yi Chen and thought to himself, is it right or wrong for Extreme Heaven Sect to be his enemy? As long as he doesn't die, Extreme Heaven Sect will have no way out. Forget it. Regardless of whether he dies or not, Extreme Heaven Sect should avoid provoking him. What Yi Chen didn't know was that because of his performance just now, Ling Hui had the thought of not being his enemy, and it had also removed a great enemy for Eternal Sky Sect. Ling Hui didn't want to gamble. Yi Chen's appearance made him realize that his time couldn't be wasted on trivial matters. He had to wholeheartedly cultivate. Letting out a deep breath, Ling Hui turned around and flew away. The others also left one by one. Before they left, their eyes landed on Yi Chen, as if they wanted to imprint his image into their minds. Whether they wanted to admit it or not, as long as Yi Chen didn't die, he would definitely become an influential figure in Elysium in the future. Yi Chen, it seems like I was worried for nothing. Lan Sanmei forced a smile. Yi Chen didn't stop training the Jinyuan crystals as he said, still, I have to thank you. As he spoke, his eyes looked into the surreal space, seemingly unintentionally. Deep in the surreal space, a skinny middle-aged man touched his chin. Mei-er's eyes are not bad. This kid has the potential to reach the top of the world. Let them interact more with him. When the time comes, the Demonic Blade Martial School should also show some sincerity. Sending help in times of need is always better than adding icing on the cake. Flashing his body, the middle-aged man disappeared instantly. In the surreal space between the Sky Tiger Martial School and the Savage Mountain Range, a lady in white stopped. In front of her was a white halo. Inside the halo, there was a scene of the Savage Mountain Range. Yi Chen and Lan Sanmei appeared on the screen. It seems like I don't have to show up directly. The lady in white smiled. But this one is the real problem. Waving her hand, the white halo disappeared. The lady in white turned around and looked into the surreal space far away. Soon, a bulky middle-aged man with a domineering aura flew over. The middle-aged man was wearing a platinum battle robe. The dominating aura around him was very obvious. The power of space surrounded him, making it impossible for anyone to get close to him. Sky Tiger King, how have you been? The lady in white said casually. Xianhou, I can't believe you dare to come to my blood sky land. Sky Tiger King frowned and said in a low voice. This is not a dangerous place. Why can't I come? Xianhou didn't care at all. You are trying to stop me. Sky Tiger King squinted his eyes. 3 years. After 3 years, I won't stop you. 3 years? What a joke. Who knows if you will become a life and death king in 3 years? Impossible. Sky Tiger King immediately denied. Nobody knew about the battle between the two. After Sky Tiger King returned, he immediately announced that he would go into closed-door training and come out 3 years later. Of course, this was for the future. Chapter 874. Yi Chen, I'll return to Demonic Blade Sect first. You be careful. Only Yi Chen and Lan Sanmei were left in Savage Mountain Range. Seeing that Yi Chen's Jin Yuan had more or less recovered, Lan Sanmei bade farewell. Alright, if you need my help in the future, don't hesitate to ask. Stopping refining the Jin Yuan crystal, Yi Chen said sincerely. Lan Sanmei smiled, of course. Not needing Yi Chen's help now didn't mean he wouldn't need it in the future. Shwa. After speaking, Lan Sanmei turned into a black light and disappeared into the distance. Watching Lan Sanmei's departing figure, Yi Chen turned his head and glanced in the direction of Sky Tiger Beast Master. He didn't know if it was his misconception, but during his battle with Giant Wolf King, he had a feeling that he was being watched. Moreover, it wasn't just one person. However, this feeling didn't carry any malice. In fact, one of them even gave him a sense of familiarity. Many thanks. Yi Chen muttered to himself and flew in the direction of Eternal Sky Sect. Eternal Sky Sect, plaza in front of the palace, Yi Chen landed. Supreme Elder. Eternal Sky Sect disciples greeted him one after another. 3 months have passed, and Elder Yi has returned. I wonder what rank Supreme Elder is in the life and death substitute list. Some disciples discussed in low voices. With Elder Ye's strength that easily defeated Ling Hui, ranking in the top 20 shouldn't be a problem, perhaps even higher. I'm guessing top 10. Can't you see that Elder Ye's aura is countless times more frightening than 3 months ago? Top 20 is more or less possible. As for top 10, I don't think it's possible. Not to mention our Blood Sky continent's 8 great beast lords and 4 demons, other continents also have shocking geniuses. How difficult would it be to enter the top 10? Yi Chen didn't conceal his aura at all. All the Sea of Soul realm experts of Eternal Sky Sect were alarmed. Whether they were in seclusion, cultivating, or drinking tea, they all flew out of their residences and arrived at the plaza. Elder Yi. Congratulations on Elder Ye's return. The leader was Li Zhangfeng, the leader of the Changtian school. Yi Chen smiled. Has Zhangtian's sect been well these past 3 months? Li Zhangfeng said, thanks to Elder Yi, no one has come to disturb us in the past 3 months. That spirit vein has almost been dug clean. That's good. The 3 sects had suffered greatly, and they would not harass Changtian's sect while he was not here. Elder Yi, the life and death secret realm has already closed. With Elder Ye's strength, your ranking should be quite high, right? Li Zhangfeng saw that Yi Chen's face didn't look gloomy at all, and that his aura had become several times more terrifying. He knew that Yi Chen's trip had been very smooth, so he dared to ask. You can say it's number 1. I'll go into seclusion for a few days. With that, Yi Chen flew towards the mountain peak he was at. Yi Chen left like a feather, but the people who heard his words were all shocked. First place. Wasn't that number 1? Hiss. Everyone, including Li Zhangfeng, was stupefied. 8 young beast lords, 4 demons, peerless geniuses of other continents had all been defeated by Yi Chen. This was simply world-shaking news. Changtian's sect flared up. Returning to the mountain peak, Yi Chen immediately entered seclusion. His cultivation base was indeed at the third layer of life and death chamber, but he had yet to familiarize himself with this sudden increase in strength, and his foundation was not very stable either. He had to enter seclusion for a few days to consolidate his current cultivation base. 7 days passed in a flash. Yi Chen smoothly exited seclusion. The third layer of life and death chamber is indeed miraculous. I can vaguely sense the life and death cycle of heaven and earth, but it's very vague. In life and death chamber, one's body carried the aura of life and death. In fact, one had already come into contact with life Tao and death Tao, but could not grasp or use them. Dugu Ju had grasped a trace of death Tao, which allowed him to advance by leaps and bounds. Marquis Sword Star's star meteor was also the same. No rush. I'll grasp both life Tao and death Tao, but not now. What I need to do now is forge upper-grade swords. Although his cultivation base had advanced by leaps and bounds, Yi Chen would not neglect his sword Tao cultivation base. The process of forging swords was also a process of self-reflection. Unceasing self-reflection, unceasing breakthroughs, an endless cycle. In life and death secret realm, the news of Yi Chen's invincibility, eventually reaching the first rank of life and death realm substitute list, spread throughout the 3 continents as well as overseas, shocking the whole world. What shocked them was not Yi Chen's invincibility, but Yi Chen's youth. According to the young expert who brought back the news, Yi Chen was no more than 30 years old, the youngest among all of them. Not even 30 years old, but the first rank of life and death realm substitute list. Was this another Xianhou? No. Yi Chen was Yi Chen, not anyone's shadow. His invincibility came from the strength of his opponents. Marquis Sword Snow and Marquis Sword Star were both peerless geniuses in the past. However, since they were in the same generation as Yi Chen, they were defeated. As for who was the true first rank between Yi Chen and Su Jing, there were still many disputes. However, such disputes were meaningless. The two were lovers, and their future would shock the whole world. Elysium shook the whole world. Blood Sky Continent was shaken. Giant Wolf King was defeated. White Wolf Sect's Supreme Elder Giant Wolf King was defeated. The one who defeated him was neither a life and death king nor a beast king, but a young man at the third layer of life and death chamber. That young man was precisely the first rank of life and death realm substitute list. Defeating Giant Wolf King at the third layer of life and death chamber was an accomplishment that no one had achieved in the past several tens of thousands of years. Perhaps Xianhou could also defeat ordinary life and death kings at the same level with a supreme grade artifact, but it had never happened. And now, such a thing had happened. Yi Chen's name thoroughly exploded in Blood Sky Continent. That's right. Indeed, it exploded. Blood Sky Continent also had the Pavilion of Knowledge. Perhaps, it wouldn't be long before Yi Chen's name spread in other continents as well. Just like Xuanhou's name back then, everyone knew about him. Yi Chen, are you sure it's him? In an underground palace, 3 blood shadows were standing in a triangle. The blood shadow with the strongest aura spoke to the blood shadow with a curved horn on his head. The blood shadow with a curved horn nodded. According to the description, it's 80 to 90% accurate. Eternal Sky Sect hasn't been destroyed for 500 years. It's a bit strange. Don't touch him for the time being. After a moment of silence, the leading blood shadow said. Are we just going to let him go like this? The blood-winged female blood shadow was puzzled. Don't be impulsive. We don't have enough tenacious strength in this world. In fact, we've always been hiding in the shadows. Once we walk out of the darkness and stand in the sunlight, we'll lose our footing, which will arouse the vigilance of this world's experts. Of course, they've already sensed our existence. The leading blood shadow said unhurriedly. This is a huge threat. Has he not grown up yet? The female blood shadow was unwilling. Don't worry, we won't let go of those who pose a threat. That Battle King is an example. However, Not being able to kill that Xianhou was a mistake and an irreparable regret. Let our representatives do the rest. Those representatives are too weak. Although they can be considered as life and death experts in this world, they're just the lowest level experts. Hee hee. The leading blood shadow chuckled, we can't control a powerful expert like Xianhou. Being weak also has its advantages. It's not easy to arouse suspicion. Should we let the representatives kill him now? The blood shadow with a curved horn asked. Faintly shaking her head, the leading blood shadow said, don't lose patience. I don't want to make another mistake. Moreover, we still have the most important thing to do, which is to unseal Lord Curse and Lord Terror. After unsealing them, we won't need to hide in the darkness anymore. We can breathe the air of this world openly. We've persevered for countless years, but those seals are too strong. The female blood shadow was a bit tired. No rush. At the slowest, it'll take 100 years. At the fastest, it'll be unsealed in a few decades. The leading blood shadow was also somewhat silent. Suddenly, the blood shadow with a curved horn spoke, perhaps we don't need to do anything. In this world, he has offended many powers. He was referring to Yi Chen. The female blood shadow disdainfully said, this world will never be united. Wrong, you're all wrong. The blood shadow in the lead solemnly said, if this world is peaceful, that would be our fortune. Experts are tempered through slaughter. It's just like raising bugs. The strong will devour the weak, and the last strong will be able to make up for all the weak before them. Alright, horned devil, continue observing that human youngster. Don't act blindly without thinking. Yes. The blood shadow with a curved horn nodded. Meeting dismissed. The leading blood shadow scattered, seeming to have lost all of its power. Dang 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 dang. The sound of iron hammers striking metal rang out incessantly. This was an underground flame cave, and a fiery aura surged. A young man was holding an iron hammer, striking the sword embryo on top of the furnace. As the iron hammer struck, the sword embryo became sharper and more aggressive. For a whole month, Yi Chen had been crafting top-rank swords. He could feel that crafting swords was also a kind of training that would allow him to accumulate a lot of experience. After who knew how many times, Yi Chen's mind was enlightened. He raised the iron hammer high, and his body emitted an immortal power as he hammered down. Dang! This hammering sound lasted for a long time. The sound seemed to contain immortality, never dissipating. The unfinished sword below emitted an immortal power that far surpassed any of the swords that Yi Chen had forged. Once it was completed, its power could be imagined. Rank 5 Immortal Sword Soul, finally completed. Putting down the iron hammer, Yi Chen's face showed a faint understanding. Immortal, what was immortal? In fact, immortality was just a kind of spirit. It wasn't a concrete existence. As the rank 5 Immortal Sword Soul formed, the Destruction Sword Soul in Yi Chen's mind trembled. The two great sword souls were at the same rank, finally resonating with each other, the resonance of destruction and immortality. Under this resonance, Yi Chen's cultivation base suddenly reached perfection, reaching the peak of the third layer of life and death chamber. Chapter 875. Once he reached the peak of the third level, all of Yi Chen's flesh and blood had combined with his Jin Yuan. His meridians contained Jin Yuan, his blood contained Jin Yuan, his skin contained Jin Yuan, and even his internal organs contained Jin Yuan. Besides his bones, his whole body was like a super sponge, and his Jin Yuan was like water, which could be absorbed by the sponge. As for the Dantian, it still had an irreplaceable function. It was the source of power and one of the cores of the human body. I can almost reach the first layer of the undying body, broken limb rebirth. Although Jin Yuan had fused with the flesh and blood, to reach the realm of broken limb rebirth, he still had to fuse the Jin Yuan into the bones. After all, there were many bones in the human body. If the flesh and blood were cut off, it could be recovered, but what about the bones? He couldn't just recover the flesh and blood without the bones, right? Wouldn't that make him a soft caterpillar? Fusing the Jin Yuan into the bones was not a difficult process for Yi Chen. He had already touched the threshold of broken limb rebirth, but his foundation was still lacking. Time flew by, and in a mere 7 days, Yi Chen succeeded. From now on, he also possessed the ability of broken limb rebirth. He only needed to consume Jin Yuan, and he didn't need to eat Yuan Qi or Xiantian Yuan Qi pills anymore. After entering the life and death realm, the undying body can at most reach the early broken limb rebirth realm. After entering the life and death realm at the peak of the third layer, the undying body can reach the peak broken limb rebirth realm, which is only a step away from flesh derivation. I've already reached the early broken limb rebirth realm. Once I enter the life and death realm, my undying body will at least reach the early flesh derivation realm. The difference between the realms of entering the life and death realm was huge. High-step half-step kings who entered the life and death realm were the most ordinary life and death realm kings. However, those who entered the life and death realm at the peak of the third layer had great potential. As long as their cultivation base kept up, they would be able to make rapid progress. Someone like Yi Chen, who had the broken limb rebirth ability even before entering the life and death realm, was extremely rare. Among the same realm, only the young undying demon lord could do it. Suddenly, Yi Chen smiled bitterly. Before he reached the realm of limb regrowth, the true essence in his body was very abundant and could not be increased. Now, there was only a little bit of true essence left in his body. Of course, this did not mean that the true essence had disappeared into thin air. Rather, it was devoured by the cells. True essence and the body became one, and there was no distinction between the two. Although it was said that way, it was still the body that took the lead. Once the battle was extremely fierce and the consumption of true essence was too fast, he could squeeze it out of his cells. This was because the fusion was still in the initial stage. There was still the middle stage of broken limb rebirth, the late stage, the peak, the early stage of flesh derivation, the middle stage, the late stage, and the peak, even the blood rebirth realm. No wonder young undying demon lord Shen Yuan is several times denser than a peak third layer life and death chamber human at the same level. Once he reaches the broken limb regrowth realm, he can hold even more Jin Yuan and increase his cultivation base even faster. At the Sea of Souls realm, only the Dantian could store Jin Yuan, and meridians were only the channels. At the half-step king warrior level, the blood could also store Jin Yuan, and at the life and death challenge realm, the flesh could also store Jin Yuan. Right now, Yi Chen's entire body could store Jin Yuan, and the Jin Yuan he had before was obviously not enough. Fortunately, I have a lot of Jin Yuan crystals. Yi Chen smiled and sat cross-legged on the ground, starting to refine the Jin Yuan crystals. 100. 1,000. 10,000. 50,000. After consuming 50,000 Jin Yuan crystals, Yi Chen finally felt full and could no longer refine Jin Yuan. At this moment, his Jin Yuan was 3 times denser than before. He was not inferior to young undying demon lord at all. The Sky Scorpio sword could also be used 15 times in a row, nearing 20 times. The evil shattering sword could be used at will. What a frightening power. His whole body was brimming with power, a feeling that not everyone could experience. At this moment, Yi Chen felt that even his fingernails contained a frightening power that could easily tear apart steel and artifacts. Of course, Yi Chen was also clear that his battle power had not increased by much, because the purity of his Jin Yuan had not increased. It was merely 3 times denser than before. 1 day later, the unfinished upper-grade sword was completed. The color of this sword was pure gold, as if it was forged from gold. It was a supreme upper-grade sword, the only supreme upper-grade sword Yi Chen had ever forged. Although it was only upper-grade, its power was comparable to a peak semi-extreme grade artifact, which was equivalent to a pseudo-extreme grade artifact. Because of the frightening immortal sword intent contained within, it was roughly peak third step. When used by Yi Chen, it did not have much of an effect. However, if it was used by another sword artist, the effect would be huge. With a peak third step immortal sword intent, it would be more than enough to defeat even more powerful opponents. Merely upper grade, not immortal yet. I'll call you 100 eras. 100 eras meant 100 eras, which meant 10,000 years. Because of the immortal sword intent, this sword could be preserved for at least 10,000 years without any damage. If a family under 5th grade could obtain it, it would be a great sword. Gotcha. Very easily, Yi Chen used the 100 eras sword to cut down another upper grade sword. His cultivation base had reached perfection, and his immortal sword soul had reached the 5th step. Resonating with the 5th step destruction sword soul, Yi Chen's strength rose by a large margin. Next, Yi Chen slowed down the forging of upper grade swords and began to comprehend the undying Tao. With a soul power 5 times that of ordinary people and a cultivation base at the peak of the 3rd layer, Yi Chen's progress would be enormous as long as he focused on something. In merely 10 days, Yi Chen comprehended a trace of Death Tao. Too vague. No wonder only the strongest attacks could contain a trace of Death Tao in the early stages. Marquis Sword Star's Star Meteor and Duga Ju's Despair Killing Blade were their strongest offensive moves. However, their ordinary moves didn't contain the Tao of Death because they didn't have a deep comprehension of it. Of course, entering Life and Death realm didn't require one to comprehend both Life and Death Tao. Even Life and Death kings couldn't accomplish such a feat as long as one comprehended a small part of Life and Death Tao and verified them, they would be able to enter Life and Death realm. Swish. Holding the evil vanquishing sword, Yi Chen slashed out, completely restraining the sword energy. It was precisely the second style of autumn water sword arts, congealing water. The reason why bewitching mirror shattering was so powerful was because of its space profound. However, Death Tao required pure destructive power. Therefore, congealing water was more suitable. Wrong. Yi Chen shook his head and sheathed his sword, pondering with his brows creased. Swish. Another sword slash was sent out. Still wrong. Blackwater Alliance headquarters, on a huge black island, in the palace at the center of the island, Blood Sky Continent's Yi Chen and True Spirit Continent's Yi Chen are actually the same person. On the throne, the black-robed man's fingers wrapped on the black golden armrest. Teacher, he hasn't become a Life and Death king yet, so we still have a chance. Once he enters Life and Death realm, we'll be in danger. Wang Tai said from below. Wang Tai wasn't a person of True Spirit Continent, so it took him more than a month to return to Blackwater Alliance. I know. I'm apprehensive of Dragon King and Xianhou. The black-robed man raised his head. Dragon King and Xianhou are in True Spirit Continent. Distant water can't put out a nearby fire. Moreover, they wouldn't dare to confront our entire Blackwater Alliance. Wang Tai didn't put Dragon King and Xianhou in his eyes. Blackwater Alliance was a huge alliance with numerous Life and Death kings, and there was no lack of powerful ones. It'd be best if we can offend them. The black-robed man was one of the tycoons of Blackwater Alliance. He was well aware of how frightening Dragon King and Xianhou were. If they truly fought, Blackwater Alliance might not be able to gain the upper hand. However, monopolizing my Blackwater Alliance's 2 million Jin Yuan crystals, he's dead for sure. We must kill him before he enters Life and Death realm. 2 million Jin Yuan crystals was a huge number even for Blackwater Alliance. It should be known that Blackwater Alliance had many kings. Apart from Blackwater Alliance, there were also other Life and Death kings who could get a share. Losing 2 million Jin Yuan crystals would be a huge loss for Blackwater Alliance. The reason why he didn't let Yi Chen enter Life and Death realm was because once Yi Chen entered Life and Death realm, he would need a huge amount of Jin Yuan crystals to increase his cultivation base. Who knew how many Zhenyuan crystals he would have left? How about this? I'll send 2 kings to Blood Sky Continent with you. Remember, act in secret and don't expose your identity. Try to kill him in 1 strike. The black-robed man stopped knocking on the armrest and said with a stern tone. Yes. Wang Tai firmly nodded. All right, you can leave first. I'll contact some free kings. Life and Death kings all had things to do. They were either in seclusion, searching for treasures in Elysium, or entering the starry sky. They rarely had free time. Chi. 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 In the past few days, Yi Chen had been using congealing water hundreds of times a day to comprehend the Death Tao. This was only because his cultivation base had increased by 3 times. Otherwise, his Zhenyuan wouldn't have been able to keep up. After stabbing dozens of times in the air, Yi Chen suddenly turned sideways. Break! Retracting his sword energy, Yi Chen's sword pierced through the towering tree in front of him. Crash! The towering tree withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Its bark turned black, and its vitality was extinguished. Finally succeeded. This sword contained the Death Tao, extinguishing the tree's vitality. If it pierced the enemy's body, it would naturally extinguish the enemy's vitality. It was extremely tyrannical. However, compared to Marquis Sword Star's Star Meteor, the Death Tao contained in this sword was a bit lacking. How could the vitality of a tree compare to the vitality of an expert? However, Yi Chen was quite satisfied. As long as he had grasped the right path, how could he not improve? At this moment, Yi Chen was confident that he could heavily injure Giant Wolf King without relying on Sky Scorpio Sword. Chapter 876. After pondering for a moment, Yi Chen took out a black iron ore from his storage ring. It was actually the Death Chi Iron Oregon. The Death Chi Iron Ore came from the Life and Death Secret Realm. It innately contained the Death Chi Iron Oregon. Death Chi Iron Ore came from the Life and Death Secret Realm. It innately contained the Death Chi Iron Oregon. If placed next to a plant, it would instantly wither. If placed next to a small river, it could even gradually dry up and turn the water inside into stagnant water. With this Death Chi Iron Ore, Yi Chen was confident that he could comprehend even more Death Tao. In the boundless starry sky, a streak of light streaked across. The streak of light passed through a group of meteorites and small stars before finally arriving on a fiery ruined star. This ruined star was extremely small, less than 6,000 li in diameter. Its surface was covered in cracks and magma. It seemed to have suffered some kind of heavy damage and was filled with a deathly aura. Swish! The streak of light descended and turned into a black-robed man. Sky King, you're looking for me. Just as the black-robed man descended, a streak of light suddenly flew over from the other side of the ruined star and landed in front of the black-robed man. It was a yellow-haired old man with an extremely ugly appearance. His face was full of pockmarks, and his strange eyes were more white than black. He looked exceptionally vicious and sinister, making one shudder in fear. Poison Fire King, seems like your cultivation base has improved again. The black-robed man smiled. This Poison Fire King was also a Life and Death King of the Blackwater Alliance. Poison Fire King rolled his eyes. I've cultivated in the core of the star for more than 30 years. If I don't make any progress, I might as well kill myself. On the other hand, Sky King, you're quite idle. That's right, your cultivation base has long since reached 900 years, unlike us. If my cultivation base could surpass 500 years, I'd also like to take a good rest and find a few hundred beauties to vent my lust. Hearing these words, the black-robed man sneered. You're still lacking women. There should be more than 1,000 skeletons of beauties on this star. I have something to ask of you. What? You can't do it yourself? Poison Fire King immediately became vigilant. I want you to kill someone for me. The black-robed man said seriously. Ha ha ha, Poison Fire King laughed heartily, causing the black-robed man to crease his brows and turn gloomy. My apologies. Poison Fire King was still somewhat afraid of the black-clothed man. The Blackwater Alliance's Sky King was one of the big shots. He stopped laughing and asked, Sky King, you can't blame me for this. You know that my strength isn't even 1/10 of yours. How can I do something that you can't? Aren't you clearly sending me to my death? Although I'm no match for you, I'm not willing to throw my life away. Poison Fire King was indeed a life and death king of Blackwater Alliance, but he wasn't Sky King's subordinate. Blackwater Alliance was merely an alliance. He could help out with some small matters, but big matters could be discussed later. Who said I'm sending you to your death? Sky King's expression softened. The person I want you to kill is not a life and death king, nor a beast king, but a human brat at the third layer of life and death chamber. I'm curious. Is there a need for me to kill him? Moreover, if you go by yourself, you can kill him with a casual breath. Poison Fire King's eyeballs turned, his face full of suspicion. This kid's strength can't be underestimated. He's the #1 genius of this generation's life and death substitute list. Nobody under life and death realm is his opponent. Only life and death kings can kill him. As for why I'm not acting, it's because this kid's backers are Dragon King and Xianhou. You also know that I represent the entire Blackwater Alliance. There are some matters that can't be done personally, even if there's no risk. Although Sky King said so, he wasn't actually afraid of Dragon King and Xianhou. After all, Yi Chen had killed Yi Chen in Blood Sky Continent. Who knew who the murderer was? What he was afraid of was the peak existence protecting Eternal Sky Sect. He had long since investigated Eternal Sky Sect's information, and naturally knew many details. Being able to reach his current height, Sky King had always been an extremely cautious person. Although the peak existence protecting Eternal Sky Sect might have left long ago, he still wanted to probe and wouldn't easily take risks. Otherwise, if he died, he would have nothing left. Sky King, if you want me to die, then do it now. You want me to offend Dragon King and Xianhou? Do you think I'm easy to bully? Poison Fire King furiously opened up a distance. Sky King was furious. Listen to me first. This kid is not on True Spirit Continent. He's on Blood Sky Continent. If you kill him, nobody will know. Blood Sky Continent. Poison Fire King pondered for a moment and decisively shook his head. No way. This is your matter. What does it have to do with me? Find someone else. He didn't believe that there was no risk. What if you add 2 blazing star crystals? Moreover, he has more than 2 million Jin Yuan crystals from my Blackwater Alliance. I'll give you 1/10. Sky King's true goal was the 2 million Jin Yuan crystals and the wealth on Yi Chen's body. After killing Yi Chen, he naturally intended to monopolize the Jin Yuan crystals. In any case, only he, Poison Fire King, and his disciple Wang Tai knew about it. You have blazing star crystals. Poison Fire King's eyes shone with greed. 1 blazing star crystal could increase his cultivation base by 10 years. 2 would be 20 years, saving him many years of bitter cultivation. This was a rare treasure. Moreover, 200,000 Jin Yuan crystals were not to be underestimated either. They could increase his cultivation base by a few years. Of course. Sky King took out a fiery red resplendent crystal, emitting a dreamy star-like radiance. Blazing star crystal. Damn it. Why can't I have it? Poison Fire King wished he could immediately snatch it. After hesitating for a moment, he said, I want 1/5. No way, 1/10 is already a lot. 1/6. In the end, the two of them settled on the condition of 2 Inferno Star crystals and 1/8 of the True Essence crystal. Truly a greedy fellow. Leaving the ruined star, Yin Sky King felt his heart ache. The value of the 2 blazing fire star crystals was extremely high. Although he couldn't use them, he could exchange them with others. Fortunately, he had an agreement with Poison Fire King. The latter's pseudo-supreme grade sword and pseudo-supreme grade armor belonged to him, and he couldn't seize them. These 2 pseudo-supreme grade artifacts were pretty good even among life and death kings. As for the supreme grade sword, it was not enough to dispel Poison Fire King's thoughts. Yin Sky King agreed that he could obtain 1/5 of the sword's wealth. Who would have thought that a character who is not even a life and death king would have a supreme grade sword? What a pleasant surprise. Unfortunately, I can't take the risk. 1 Poison Fire King was not enough. With the Sky Scorpio sword, Yi Chen could even defeat Giant Wolf King. Although Poison Fire King was much stronger than Giant Wolf King, it was not enough. However, Yin Sky King already had a good candidate in mind. That person was not as greedy as Poison Fire King. If he hadn't saved him back then, he would have lost his life long ago. With a streak of light, Yin Sky King disappeared into the depths of the starry sky. Yi Chen still didn't know that one of the tycoons of Blackwater Alliance, Yin Sky King, had invited 2 life and death kings to deal with him. Of course, even if he knew, he wouldn't be afraid. Although his strength was not enough, he still had the supreme gazing painting. With the painting, even if Yin Sky King came personally, he wouldn't have an easy time. Yi Chen didn't care about the storm in the outside world, nor did he notice it. He was immersed in the comprehension of Death Tao. Death. Death Chi. Swish. After observing the Death Chi or for a moment, Yi Chen pulled out the evil vanquishing sword and stabbed out. The formless Death Chi rippled in the air, spreading out in all directions. Not good, not reserved enough. Once the Death Chi spread out, its destructive power would be reduced. It would have to be coordinated with congealing water sword and explode within the opponent's body. What a pity. If I had the ability to forge Death Chi iron into a Death Chi sword now, I would be able to comprehend the way of death even faster. With a top-grade sword forged from Death Chi iron, one could slowly comprehend the way of death in the midst of slaughter. This human skin mask is really not bad. Seems like I'll have to learn how to make it in the future, just in case I need it. 10,000 li away from Eternal Sky Sect, 3 figures were flying at an extremely fast speed. The pale-faced middle-aged man in the middle touched his face and chuckled. Poison Fire King, Blood Hand King, I'll wait for you here. Remember teacher's words. You must kill in 1 strike. Don't attract other people's attention. The ugly-faced youth said. What nonsense. It's just killing a little guy. I alone can do it, let alone a sneak attack. Poison Fire King, who had changed his appearance, curled his lips. I hope you'll succeed. The ugly youngster was naturally Wang Tai. Although he was not a life and death king, Yin Sky King had allowed him to follow. Don't worry, my profound meaning of blood will kill him immediately. The other dark-faced middle-aged man coldly said. Alright, let's go. Wang Tai concealed himself in a dense forest. Let's go. Poison Fire King and Blood Hand King shattered the space and disappeared. In the past few days, Yi Chen had been training in the mountain range behind Eternal Sky Sect, comprehending Death Tao. Nobody disturbed him. One day, Yi Chen's brows creased. He had just felt a soul power scan him. King-grade soul power. The soul power of a life and death king was extremely hidden. Those below life and death realms simply couldn't sense it. However, Yi Chen was a soul genius, and his quality was not any lower than a life and death king's. Another one. 2 more. Yi Chen's expression turned grave. However, he pretended as if nothing had happened on the surface, wholeheartedly training his sword. He didn't even use Death Tao, only using sword moves. Who wants to deal with me? Yi Chen guessed inwardly. Could it be because of the Sky Scorpio sword? Subconsciously, Yichen thought that a life and death king coveted the Sky Scorpio sword and wanted to kill him for it. However, according to reason, no one in Blood Sky Continent would brazenly come to Eternal Sky Sect and kill him for the sword. After all, the reason Eternal Sky Sect could stand tall for so many years was because a titled monarch had said several hundred years ago that no one was allowed to invade Eternal Sky Sect. Life and Death Kings and Beast Kings were naturally among them. Chapter 877. In the depths of the void, Poison Fire King and Blood Hand King's soul power penetrated through the spatial barrier and landed on Yichen's body. Peak of the third layer. Wasn't it said that there was only the third layer? Poison Fire King faintly exclaimed. Although the third layer and peak third layer were in the same realm, the difference was not small. At the peak of the third layer, the energy within one's body and flesh would fuse together, allowing one to store much more energy. Moreover, the perfection of one's mental state would allow one's body to utilize energy with greater ease, increasing one's battle strength. Poison Fire King, are you afraid? Blood Hand King sneered. Poison Fire King almost jumped up as if his tail had been stepped on. Blood Hand King, what do you mean? No matter how powerful he is still not a life and death king. I'm merely surprised. Moreover, I advise you not to be careless. He has a supreme grade sword, and even Giant Wolf King is no match for him. Although both of us are stronger than Giant Wolf King, we might be injured if we're not careful. Poison Fire King had always been cautious, and he viewed his own life with extreme importance. If not for the temptation being too great, he wouldn't have rashly come over. Rest assured, I won't be careless no matter who I'm facing. Otherwise, Sky King wouldn't have invited me. Before becoming a life and death king, Blood Hand King was an assassin. As an assassin, the most basic requirement was not to be careless. Even when facing an ordinary person, one's heart had to be as calm as still water. Poison Fire King's mouth twitched. He also knew that Blood Hand King was a frightening person. His frightening was not his strength, but his calm heart. Such a person would either not attack, or strike like a thunderbolt. Alright, let's do it. Make sure to use your killing moves. Poison Fire King licked his lips with a sinister expression on his face. Blood Hand King's eyes were as calm as an ancient well, but his indifference was even more frightening. Circulating their Jin Yuan, the two's auras rose. Attack! Gotcha! The space ruptured, and Poison Hand King and Blood Hand King appeared. Their auras had already reached a critical point. Poison Hand King slightly opened his mouth, faintly emitting a purple-red radiance. Blood Hand King's palms turned blood-red like jade, containing a frightening power. Bewitching mirror shattering. They were fast, but Yi Chen was faster. Just as the two moved, before they could break the space, Yi Chen took out the Sky Scorpio sword and unsheathed it in an instant. By the time the two broke the space, Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering had already finished storing up power. With a slash, boundless space ripples and sword chi containing the profound of space pervaded, condensed, and solidified. Ugh! Poison Fire King and Blood Hand King, who were sealed in the mirror, looked dazed. What was going on? How did Yi Chen know that someone was going to attack him? How did he know that they would attack from this position? Coincidence? Even a fool would know that this was not a coincidence. The only explanation was that Yi Chen had a soul power comparable to a life and death king. By relying on his powerful soul power, he was able to trace their existence and make preparations in advance. Otherwise, there was no way to explain the fact that they were attacked as soon as they came out. Damn it! In less than 1,000th of a blink of an eye, Poison Fire King and Blood Hand King's figures twisted, struggling to break free from the restraint of the frozen space. However, they had underestimated the might of bewitching mirror shattering. Adding on the fact that they were caught unprepared, they wasted a lot of time. By the time they reacted, the mirror had already shattered. It shattered into millions of pieces, each piece like a sharp blade. Poochie 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 poochie. What did it feel like to be cut into pieces? This was the feeling right now. Poison Fire King and Blood Hand King's protective Jin Yuan was cut open, and cracks appeared on their armors. The places where they weren't wearing defensive artifacts were covered in bloody scars. The masks on their faces were also torn off, revealing their flesh and blood. In a mere instant, the two had suffered a frightening blow. "Kid, I'll dismember you into 1,000 pieces." Poison Fire King's roar couldn't even be isolated by the pervading space power. The entire mountain range shook, as if this sound wave had the power to destroy a small mountain range. Still not enough. Using Bewitching Mirror shattering to injure Poison Fire King and Blood Hand King, not only did the two have to retract their killing moves, but their bodies had also become stiff. However, Yi Chen knew that this was far from enough. The opponents had undying bodies, and these injuries would quickly recover. By the time they recovered, he would be in danger fighting 1 against 2. His forehead opened, and a silver vertical eye opened. Noiselessly, a silver light beam shot out, ignoring the pervading space power and Poison Fire King's physical defenses, directly drilling into his sea of soul. Amidst Poison Fire King's muffled groan, Yi Chen didn't stop. Holding the Sky Scorpio sword, his figure flickered, arriving not far from Blood Hand King and thrusting out. Autumn Water Sword Art Second Style, Congealing Water. In terms of pure lethality, Congealing Water had already surpassed Bewitching Mirror Shattering. This was because, apart from containing the Metal Profound and Water Profound, it also contained the Death Dao. As the sword stabbed out, the crisis of death enveloped Blood Hand King. Blood Hand King was, after all, an assassin. Be it his mental endurance or reaction speed, he was a bit faster than Poison Fire King. At the moment of imminent peril, he crossed his arms in front of his forehead. Rip! The Sky Scorpio sword pierced through Blood Hand King's crossed arms, only missing an inch. Pang! A rain of light sprinkled down, and Blood Hand King's arms turned into purple crystals, thoroughly shattering. Apart from this, a power of extermination spread through his arms and into his body. It's Death Dao. Blood Hand King didn't reveal a trace of pain on his face, as if the shattered arms weren't his. However, he was somewhat astonished by the Death Dao contained in Yi Chen's sword. This was far more profound than the Death Dao he had comprehended when he first entered Life and Death Realm. If Yi Chen comprehended half of the Death Dao and Life Dao, he would be able to enter Life and Death Realm and become a true king. However, Death Dao isn't enough to deal with it. An even more powerful Death Qi erupted from Blood Hand King's body, instantly dispersing Yi Chen's Death Qi. What a pity. The moment Blood Hand King crossed his arms and blocked the sword, Yi Chen knew that he had lost the best opportunity to kill him. As a Life and Death King, it was impossible for him to not have comprehended Death Dao. If this sword had pierced Blood Hand King's vitals, Yi Chen was confident that the combination of Death Dao and Congealing Water would have left Blood Hand King on the verge of death. Seeing that his sword strike had no effect, Yi Chen hastily retreated and released his powerful sword domain, suppressing the surrounding spatial power and making the might of the sword domain even more frightening. Go! Thousands of cyan-colored swords condensed and shot toward Poison Fire King and Blood Hand King. It was as if 10,000 arrows had been shot at the same time. The intensity was indescribable. Blood Hand King's shattered arms rapidly grew back, and the wounds on his body also healed. Blood Hand King's emotionless eyes fixated on Yi Chen, a trace of apprehension in the depths of his pupils. As an assassin, what he feared the most were those whose minds were as calm as an ancient well, able to display their strength to the limit, or even surpass it. Without a doubt, Yi Chen was this kind of person. From the moment they were restrained, the opponent's attacks came one after another, each of them extremely dangerous. As long as they were the slightest bit careless, the consequences would be unimaginable. It was hard to imagine how Yi Chen could come up with such a meticulous plan in such a short time. Clang clang clang. The protective Jin Yuan of a life and death king was extremely sturdy. The thousands of swords were all bounced off, and each spark could melt a large amount of mountain rocks. I made a mistake. I should have targeted someone else. Blood Hand King's mental fortitude and reaction speed astonished Yi Chen. On the other hand, the other person was much worse in this aspect, only at the level of an ordinary life and death king. Of course, this couldn't be blamed on Yi Chen. Yi Chen hadn't studied these two's characters. If he had, he wouldn't have chosen this person as his first target. Puff! A silver light shot out as Yi Chen unleashed a soul light at Blood Hand King. Under the suppression of sword domain, no matter how fast Blood Hand King's reaction speed was, his body couldn't keep up. Therefore, the soul light charged into his sea of soul. His face slightly pale, Blood Hand King's expression was somewhat absent-minded. The soul membrane of a life and death king was extremely powerful, but Yi Chen's innate ability, soul light, was also not to be underestimated. Under the impact of the soul light, the membrane trembled, and his soul felt dizzy. Kill. Since Blood Hand King was his first target, Yi Chen wouldn't change his mind. Moreover, it would be difficult for him to use soul light a third time. If not for his immortal sword soul reaching the fifth step and resonating with the fifth step destruction sword soul, his soul power would have been completely depleted, and his condition would have dropped to a frightening level. And now, the soul power in his sea of soul was less than a tenth of what it used to be, and it was at a dangerous level. Like a sword light, Yi Chen shot straight at Blood Hand King. The existence of sword domain made his speed even faster and harder to capture. In an instant, the distance between him and Blood Hand King was less than 10 meters. A sword pierced out. Congealing water. Kid, die for me. Poison Fire King had already recovered from the dizziness. While using his protective Jin Yuan to resist the myriad swords, he slightly opened his mouth, and a purple-red light flickered before shooting out. Fused profound martial skill, poison fire explosion. I have to kill him. Yi Chen's face was filled with killing intent as he completely disregarded Poison Fire King's frightening attack. His sword pierced Blood Hand King's forehead, and a burst of energy combined with death chi exploded in Blood Hand King's head. Pang! Blood Hand King's head exploded, his life force gone. In the next moment, Poison Fire King's attack also landed on Yi Chen's body, creating a violent explosion. The purple-red flame was not only scorching hot, but also contained intense fire poison. Chapter 878. The location of the battle was thousands of miles away from the main peak of Zhangtian Martial School, but everyone in the school could feel waves of horrifying power being transmitted through the air. The howling wind had even blown down the trees on the surrounding mountains, uprooting the flowers and grasses, and then turning them into dust. This is a battle between kings. Li Zhangfeng's pupils shrank as he muttered. Sect leader, is Elder Yi cultivating in the core of the mountain range? Us? Gao Ziyuan's face was filled with worry. What can we do? The great elder smiled bitterly. A casual attack from a life and death king can annihilate the entire sect. We can only pray that Elder Yi can turn misfortune into fortune and repel the invading kings. The news of Yi Chen heavily injuring Giant Wolf King had long since reached Eternal Sky Sect. Everyone in Eternal Sky Sect was filled with reverence for Yi Chen, regarding him as an existence comparable to ordinary kings. Bang! All of a sudden, the earth shook, and a lot of buildings on the main peak of the school collapsed. In the next moment, a huge purple-red fireball rose 1,000 li away. Even from 1,000 li away, it seemed as if it was right in front of one's eyes. Swish! As the fireball rose, a beam of light tore through the sky and pierced through the main peak's main hall, leaving a pitch-black hole in the ground. What's this? Everybody was startled. It looks like a sword. Li Zhongfeng's heart skipped a beat. Making a prompt decision, he slammed his palm on the ground. Puff! The beam of light flew out, revealing a sword sheath. It's Elder Ye's sword sheath. Someone recognized it. The evil vanquishing sword at Yi Chen's waist was something everyone had seen many times. Holding the sword sheath, Li Zhongfeng's expression became even more worried. This battle was definitely better than the one with Giant Wolf King. Otherwise, the sword sheath wouldn't have flown out. As the fireball rose, Poison Fire King was incomparably happy. The poison fire explosion was one of his most powerful ace attacks. Not to mention a little guy at the peak of the third layer of life and death challenge, even life and death realm warriors at the same level would not dare to use their bodies to resist it. He was sure that Yi Chen would die without a complete corpse. What a pity for Blood Hand King. Poison Fire King could not understand why Yi Chen would risk his life to kill Blood Hand King. The fireball gradually shrank, its color changing from purplish red to dark red, then from dark red to orange red. Then, with a poof, it dissipated into nothingness, as if it had never existed. Only the huge crater and lava on the ground could prove the authenticity of what had just happened. Impossible. Poison Fire King's expression changed. He saw Yi Chen. Yi Chen was wielding two swords. In the air, Yi Chen's appearance could only be described as miserable. His two swords were crisscrossed between his head and chest. Apart from his head and torso, the rest of his body was scorched black. His legs were even missing. From the outside, the two arms holding the evil vanquishing sword and Sky Scorpio sword looked no different from charcoal. Indistinctly, crackling sounds could be heard coming from within his arms. The instant he killed Blood Hand King, Yi Chen immediately switched from offense to defense. The Destruction Sword Intent was replaced by the Immortal Sword Intent. Immortal Sword Intent focused on suppression and defense. Even so, he could only protect the most important parts of his body. His legs were directly burnt to ashes, and even the evil vanquishing sword's sheath was sent flying to God knows where. Whoosh! All of a sudden, Yi Chen's arms turned into two balls of fire, burning into nothingness. Losing control of the two swords, the evil vanquishing sword and Sky Scorpio sword fell down, along with the storage ring. It's mine. Poison Fire King's attention shifted to the Sky Scorpio sword. His figure flickered, ready to pounce. Sword Snake Art. Een. The evil vanquishing sword and Sky Scorpio sword faintly trembled, each turning into 33 sword phantoms. A total of 66 sword phantoms formed two sword phantoms flickering with cold light, twisting toward Poison Fire King. Poison Fire King managed to block the evil vanquishing sword, but not the Sky Scorpio sword. His arms and legs were shredded into bloody mist. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, he spat out a flame from his mouth, repelling the sword image aimed at his head. Sky Scorpio sword and evil vanquishing sword flew back, hovering above Yi Chen's head. Flesh and blood squirmed, bones sprouted, and Yi Chen's arms and legs grew back. Raising his right hand, the storage ring automatically appeared on his finger. With a flicker of light, Yi Chen changed into a new set of blue clothes. Limb rebirth? Poison Fire King couldn't control his shock and blurted out. Damn Een Sky King. You didn't even find out such important information. Poison Fire King hated Een Sky King to the bone. Yi Chen was indeed not a life and death king, but his soul power was comparable to a life and death king's. Moreover, he had comprehended Death Tao, and even limb rebirth. If they continued fighting, he didn't know what new ability Yi Chen would use. However, thinking about it, Poison Fire King felt that he couldn't blame Een Sky King. These abilities of Yi Chen were extremely powerful, and he wouldn't casually reveal them. Thus, Een Sky King's failure to find out was quite normal. Activating Undying Body, Poison Fire King's 4 limbs grew back, and he also changed into a new set of clothes. Yi Chen, seems like we've all underestimated you. Poison Fire King looked at Yi Chen with apprehension. Who are you? Yi Chen asked. He had always been concealing his abilities. He wouldn't reveal all of his trump cards until the critical moment. Just like in the secret realm, he didn't reveal bewitching mirror shattering. He knew that if he didn't pay attention to these details, it would be too late for regrets at the critical moment. Who I am is not important. What's important is that today, you'll die without a doubt. Poison Fire King didn't believe that he wasn't injured at all. Apart from pure killing power, his poison fire explosion also contained intense fire poison. This fire poison was like maggots in one's bones, extremely difficult to remove. Once it attacked the heart, even a peak life and death king would find it hard to save him. Is that so? As he spoke, Yi Chen took out a white fruit from his storage ring. This was the fruit of life and death secret realm, containing a large amount of life chi. Just as Poison Fire King had expected, his body was indeed filled with fire poison that was difficult to remove. This fire poison was constantly devouring his life force and attacking his heart. Chewing the fruit of life, it turned into life liquid and entered his internal organs, replenishing his lost life force. Yi Chen let out a breath. For the time being, his life was no longer in danger. With your Jin Yuan, using undying body should consume a lot of energy, right? Thinking of something, Poison Fire King grinned. Try it and you'll know. Activating his soul power, the Sky Scorpio sword and evil vanquishing sword landed in Yi Chen's hands. Fine, I'll give it a try. Poison Fire Explosion. Poison Fire King was extremely sinister. Opening his mouth, he spat out a killing move. A purplish-red flame pillar shot out, causing the space to boil and bubble. Extinguish. Yi Chen raised the Sky Scorpio sword and slashed. Buzz. The space distorted and solidified, sealing the purplish-red flame pillar and shattering it into thousands of pieces. Let's see how long you can last. Poison Fire King clearly wanted to exhaust Yi Chen's Jin Yuan. Opening his mouth, he spat out purplish-red flame pillar after purplish-red flame pillar, bombarding Yi Chen from several li away. He didn't dare to get too close to Yi Chen. Yi Chen's soul light left a lingering fear in his heart. Blood Hand King had also been struck by the soul light, causing his soul to feel dizzy. Otherwise, with Yi Chen's strength, how could he have instantly killed Blood Hand King? Yi Chen's soul light was simply not inferior to a heaven-grade high-step soul secret art at great completion. Humph. Yi Chen coldly snorted. Poison Fire King thought he didn't have much Jin Yuan left, but in fact, he still had 60 to 70% of it. Recovering the undying body only used 30%. However, this didn't mean he could use it as he pleased. The fire poison didn't seem to be able to threaten Yi Chen at the moment, but it still held back half of his Jin Yuan. Otherwise, without the suppression of Jin Yuan, the fire poison would attack his heart, and he wouldn't even need Poison Fire King to kill him. Congealing water. Switching to the evil vanquishing sword, Yi Chen stabbed out with the Sky Scorpio sword in his right hand. A purple water-like sword energy pierced through the void and attacked Poison Fire King. Poison Fire King jumped in fright. Multitasking, perfect multitasking. Multitasking was something many people could accomplish, but to perfectly multitask like Yi Chen, executing different moves with both hands at the same time, was something few could accomplish. Even Poison Fire King admitted that he couldn't do it. Poison Fire Barrier. His left hand drew a semicircle, condensing an arc-shaped purple barrier in front of Poison Fire King. Ping! The water-like sword energy struck the purple barrier, causing circular ripples. With a muffled groan, Poison Fire King took several steps back. The poison fire flame explosion he was about to prepare was stopped. Now's the time. Yi Chen rapidly approached. With the bewitching mirror shattering in his left hand and congealing water in his right, it was as if he had turned into two people, fiercely attacking Poison Fire King. Peng 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 peng. Poison Fire King retreated again and again, blood trickling down the corner of his mouth. How much Xinyuan does this kid have? Why hasn't the fire poison in his body erupted? Poison Fire King gradually thought of retreating. He had been underestimating Yi Chen all along. When Yi Chen didn't act as he expected, he lost confidence. Retreat. The space suddenly exploded as Poison Fire King tried to escape into the void. Bewitching mirror shattering, condense for me. Steam rose from Yi Chen's body as he used the bewitching mirror shattering with the Sky Scorpio sword. A hilarious scene unfolded. The Poison Fire King was stuck in the spatial barrier. Half of his body was outside, while the other half was in the void. He looked miserable. Spatial shattering. Poison Fire King's exposed body shattered into thousands of pieces, filling the sky with a purple rain of light. Yi Chen, you're dead. I will take revenge. From the depths of the void, Poison Fire King's crazed roar resounded. Yi Chen didn't care about Poison Fire King's words. He spurted out a mouthful of purple-red blood. There wasn't a trace of vitality in it, only fire poison. In fact, he was already at the end of his rope at this point. Just now, he had drawn out a portion of the Zhen Yuan he used to suppress the fire poison and used the bewitching mirror shattering. However, the fire poison had immediately counterattacked, forcing his Zhen Yuan to retreat. If Poison Fire King had persisted for a while longer, the one to die would have been Yi Chen. Unfortunately, the opponent had been scared off. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.